Good afternoon. This is my friend Rabbi Shapiro. The last time we worked together was the 15th of March to the last year in the congregation Son Israel. And today he invited me to his house in Brooklyn next to 770. And wow, I passed a beautiful, beautiful afternoon. Thank you, Rabbi. Now we're going to talk about the Tanya and about the Parashat of this week, Behar, Bejukotai. And this is the Rabbi Shapiro. And Rabbi, it's all yours. Let me put it like this. And you can talk for all my friends and for all the students.
Today is Chafi and the 20th of year.
Yes.
Right? The 35th day of the Omer. Never right to Nayim. Says first in Yiddish. Nitov Amemen Ibegeben Dimen Badaf Dafun. Right, it says Ein Kalafemi Lis Nair Machais. Okay, there's no one to pamper us. We must labor.
Yep.
Mit Sablanut und Kiruv Hadas kann man Bezras Hashem Yisborach als durchnehmen. Durchwenning, Megan. Do bit. I sometimes breathe. Yeah. Durchsetzen. Okay, I'll translate in a minute. Mit Bitul Hazolas Vagos Atzmei wird men Chalila aushon. Next, that was the Yiddish. That's the Yiddish. The Hebrew says, V'teichen sichosam hoya. And the midst of the sicha words were, I'm sorry, that was wrong one. There we go. Yeah. And like I said, En Kalafei Mili is not Mechayis. No one to pamper us. No one to take our chayis for us. Everybody needs to take responsibility for themselves. Tzarech l'siagea b'salbanut. You need to approach with patience, v'kiru v'das, and closeness to knowledge, efshar, be'ezras Hashem, with God's help, Yisborich, l'sader hakol, to organize everything. Bebitul hazolos v'agbos hatzmei mafsidim chalila hakol. Right? Says most right. Approach with patience and brotherly understanding. We can, with God's help, overcome all obstacles by belittling another and exalting oneself. One loses everything. Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like we were talking. The responsibility to every Jew to be holy. Like Hashem is holy, and like you say, is you obey me, we're gonna bless you. You're gonna be blessed. But if you disobey, you know what is happening. Now the parasha of the week is Behar Bejukotai. Behar in the mountain. In what mountain? Is in Mount Sinai. Bejukotai, my law. It's meaning in the mountain of Sinai, I give you my law. The first law is coming is the Sheita. The 7 years, the land, after working 7 years for you, and you have your fruit and so on, and you give you the part to the poor, to the convert, and to the widow and orphan. You see the corner, you see to your lambs, you don't touch that. I can say it's a rest for the land. And if you rest in the 7 years, I will give you 3 years the production after you stop it. I mean, the 7 years you're gonna have the products, you will stop it. The next year, when you put in your new grain and so on, you're gonna have it. And the next year, even the next year, you're gonna have the fruit. Rabbi Shapiro, it's your the Parashat Behar Bejukotai.
Yeah.
Now it's yours.
We saw first this week is two parshas, Behar and Bejukotai. Today we start with Behar, right? The first pasuk states, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'Har Sinai Lema," right? Spoke to Hashem on Har Sinai. God spoke to Moshe on Har Sinai. So it's an interesting question here. One, why does it say? Why does it very stress that God spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai? Why does this happen many times? Why but after a year? What is the connection between the concept of Shemitah, which the first part of the parsha speaks about, and Mount Sinai, Har Sinai? That the verse stresses this commandment was given at Sinai. Were not all the commandments given at Har Sinai?
Yeah.
Huh?
Only two, the first two. Remember?
No, all
and
everything. No.
Hashem gave you the Ten Commandments in the first day, Rabbi?
The Torah is more than 10 commandments. Everything was given at Har Sinai. What was said aloud is there's different opinions.
Exactly. Allow when the people listen and they say to Moshe,
whenever
Hashem say we do it, but
that's one opinion.
Exactly.
That's
and what is the another?
Another opinion says that Hashem spoke all 10.
All 10.
All 10 quickly.
This is another. This is another
right?
opinion.
But according to the opinion, why was it only the first two? The first, because after the first two, after each commandment, right, Hashem spoke, then the shamas, the souls, flew out of their bodies.
Everybody died.
So they said it's the second one, it's too much for us. They asked Moshe to repeat the other ones. Moshe went on to repeat it.
That's why they say, whenever they say we do, and after that we understand.
Well, that's not submission. Okay?
Okay, let's continue now.
Okay. Now, one of the things here, this teaches us, just like the case of Shemitah, whose general laws and details were all stated at Sinai, likewise the general laws and details of all the other mitzvahs were also said at Sinai. The above was taught in Torah's Kohanim, and it appears to me that this explanation that is as follows. We do not find a law resting the soil during the sabbatical year was mentioned together with the details of the other mitzvahs at the plains of Moab in the book of Behar. From this, it is understood that both the general laws and the details for observing the sabbatical year had already been taught at Sinai. Therefore, our verse, which stresses the agricultural laws of Shemitah, the sabbatical year, were said at Sinai, is redundant, since this is already known from the book of Devarim above. Consequently, the phrase comes to teach us something else, that the theory and precise method of the commandments was conveyed to Moshe at Sinai, and what was said later at the plains of Moab was merely repetition. That's one opinion. In the Gemara, we find Rabbi Shmuel said the general laws were said at Sinai, and the details were said in the tent of meeting Elohim.
Okay.
Rabbi Akiva said general laws and the details were said at Sinai. They were then repeated in the tent of meeting and at the plains of Moab. Okay, that's the basics. Now, okay, there's two things here. One first, the Rebbe speaks. When Moshe spent 40 days and nights in Har Sinai, he must have learned a considerable amount of information. Clearly, Moshe's studies would have at least touched upon every one of the mitzvahs that were given to the Jewish people. What is not clear, however, is whether the mitzvahs were explained to Moshe on Mount Sinai with all the details required for practical observance, or whether the details were added by God at a later point, after Moshe had come down from the mountain. This was the basis of the dispute between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva in the Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel maintained that only the general laws were said at Sinai. i.e. the general outline of the commandments about the details. The details required to observe the mitzvahs were communicated to Moshe later in the tent of meeting at some point before they became practically relevant.
Excellent.
Rabbi Akiva maintained that both general laws and the detail were set at Sinai. Thus, the fact that we find a further elaboration of the mitzvahs to Moshe in the Old Moed, the tent of meeting, through the book of Vayikra and later in the plains of Moab, represents a repetition of what God had already told Moshe on Mount Sinai, which was not recorded in the Torah. In his commandments, Rashi appears to reject the view of Rabbi Shmuel in favor of Rabbi Akiva, writing, the general laws and the details of all the commandments were conveyed to Moshe at Sinai. However, on closer analysis, Rashi does not appear to disprove Rabbi Shmuel's position, for Rabbi Shmuel maintained that the general laws were set at Sinai, and the details later in the tent of meeting only proves his case from the fact that we do not find that the law of resting the soil, the laws of Shemitah, was mentioned in the plains of Moab in the book of Behar. Surely, if Rashi wished to refute the position of Rabbi Shmuel that the details were said later in the Old Moed, he should have written, we do not find the law of resting the soil was mentioned either in the tent of meeting or at the plains of Moab.
Okay.
Right, that's it. So now, what is the explanation on this? It could be argued that Rashi's comment here is compatible even with the view of Rabbi Shmuel. Note that throughout this explanation, Rashi does not refer to Mount Sinai, but rather Sinai alone, suggesting that not only the mountain itself, but the Sinai desert in general. Thus, it could be argued, that the tent of meeting came under the heading of the Rashi. At Sinai, what Rashi calls Sinai.
Okay.
Okay, let me finish the paragraph here. It says, okay.
5 minutes.
Okay, the general laws. Sorry, since at this point it was camped in the Sinai desert. This is where everybody was. So when Rashi writes the general laws and details of all the commandments were conveyed to Moshe at Sinai, he is not making a statement which is only compatible with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, for Sinai could refer to the tent of meeting. And even Rabbi Shmuel maintained that the general laws were set at Sinai, and he holds the details were said later on in the tent of meeting in the Sinai desert. Okay? So, what forced Rashi at little level to interpret this expression at Mount Sinai to mean the Sinai desert in general rather than the mountain specifically? A number of points could be argued. A, if one takes the verse literally, that God spoke to Moshe while he was on the mountain itself, then it follows that a parsha was actually said before the erection of the tabernacle, of the Mishkan, as Rashi stated earlier in Parshas Kisisa. Once it was erected, God only spoke with him from the tent of meeting. So, if Parshas Behar was said at Mount Sinai literally, it would turn out that the parsha was actually said before the entire book of Vayikra and before the Mishkan was erected at the end of book of Shemos. Thus, Rashi preferred the explanation that at Mount Sinai means in the desert at Mount Sinai, which includes the tent of meeting, the Mishkan, but then a parsha follows in chronological order. Rabbi Akiva's position that Moshe that God told Moshe all the practical laws and the mitzvahs while he was on Har Sinai is hard to accept at the literal level, since there's an indication in the Torah that all the commandments were said from God, by God, from God to Moshe in the tent of meeting, were merely a repetition of what he had said before on the mountain. Therefore, Rashi interprets the phrase Mount Sinai to mean in the desert at Mount Sinai, so as to be compatible to the view of Rabbi Shmuel, which is more acceptable at the literal level.
Excellent, Rabbi. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And how you see it was in Mount Sinai around 3,333 years ago when a change coming in more to 3 million witnesses and a change talking, this is my Torah. That's I give it to you. It's not a person is coming and making another books and he say he's the uncle, he's the son, he's the cousin or whatever. In substitution to the Torah, use common sense. Do you think this is a chance to say, this is my Torah, this is my commandment, this is what you need to follow? And Hashem don't change. And by the way, he is only, and he not share his glory with nobody. Meaning, the Torah is the only books given to the people to Israel. The Gentile only has 7 laws. The law or not to keep it. And if you keep it, you're gonna have you lamava, you heaven in the heaven to the Gentile because you only keep it 7 law. The Jewish people keeping 600 authentic mitzvot or commandment, meaning it's another olavama because they keep more. It's like if you play in the big league with the Yankee and so on, this is a league, this is another. But if you play in the small league, this is another. You see, it's 2 baseball teams, but different. It's the same. It's 2 different. It's 2 different heaven. One for the Gentile to keep the law, to know it, 7 law, and you know the law. I am your God. Don't curse God. Don't kill, don't steal, and make the animal dead before you eat it, and make a justice department, police, and so on. Simple. Of course, the purity of the sexuality, like I tell you before, and the stealing is 2 things. From my point of view, the entire world need to be careful of that because you can steal. He say no. And you can be immoral in sexuality. You can be in adultery, you can be in concupiscence, you can be in lesbian, in gay, in animalist. You can't do that. Sorry, you can eat an animal when it's alive. You can do that. You need to do justice. You see, you can kill nobody. You only have one God. You say one God. He not say 2, 3, or 4, or 1,000. How too many countries in this world have it. I'll be back because we almost finished. Yes, Behar Bejukotai. Behar in the Mount Sinai, Bejukotai, my love. And I hope you enjoy the knowledge to my friend Rabbi Shapiro, Herson Shapiro, because I passed a couple of hours with him here. Wow, with a nice piece around 770. This is 770 area when the Rabbi was leaving. Wow, what a day, a beautiful afternoon. The water in New York City is almost 80 degrees, meaning it's a beautiful day. Rabbi Shapiro, thank you for the invitation to your house. Thank you for sharing with all my friends and family in YouTube the knowledge to the Parashat Behar Bejukotai, and hoping Hashem give you a blessing to you and your wife, and give you too many beautiful babies because the Rabbi is just married. He's a happy guy. I don't want to show his wife because he's so beautiful. I don't want nobody see her. No, even when she have the babies. Shh, quiet. She's lovely. And my Rabbi too. This is my beloved Rabbi. Rabbi, thank you for the invitation. And to all of you, have a beautiful Sunday and enjoy the Parashat, Behar, Bejukotai. I love you to all. Puerto Rico family, one of those days I see you in person. Bye bye. I do the arrangement to go there to see you, every one of you. I miss you. Bye bye, Tia. I love you. Have a nice Sunday.